Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another podcast episode. My name is Alicia Gogan, the host of the Globe Seekers podcast, where I help you expand your mind and become more self-aware so that you can glow up into the best version of yourself. Hello and happy Sunday if you're listening on a Sunday, and happy September. I hope everyone is really excited for the fall season in terms of what fall brings, but also the seasonal change that sometimes can really motivate us to take care of ourselves in new ways and form better habits and routines and get our minds right, which is hopefully what this episode will help you with. So I have struggled in many seasons of my life with depression and even anxiety, negative thoughts, a lot of worry and stress. And I just want to chat about some of the things that really help me stay out of a depressive state, along with quieting some negative thoughts that can tend to come up in my mind. And this is what I will say. There is going to be phases of your life where you might feel like you're more thrown into like the mental health struggles than others. Maybe you struggle with it all the time, but at least for me, as much as I'm sure you guys listen to my content, you see how I am, you know my mindset, you probably think Alicia's mental health is like really good and this, that, and it's not that it's not. I've just learned what I need to do for myself when it comes to making sure I'm not falling into deep, dark holes and, depression and negative thoughts. And there are definitely seasons of my life where I feel like I'm really struggling more than others. And my mom passed away in December of 2024. So I feel like depression and negative thoughts and worry and things like that, it has been very heightened. So the last 8 months of my life, I feel like I've definitely had to grapple with keeping myself out of a depressive state more than I usually do. And I was recently talking to my therapist about how one of the things that still kind of lingers on from the grieving process, which I am still grieving and I will basically always be grieving the loss of my mom. But, as time goes on, you typically will feel a little bit better. Like, obviously, I'm living my life again. I'm not in the place that I was a month or two into losing her and things like that. I had to go on a deep healing journey with that. And I would like to definitely make an episode on grieving, probably at the 1 year mark, just because there's still so many things that I am experiencing when it comes to grief. But anyways, one of the things that has really been in the forefront of my mind, because I've witnessed and been aware of these thoughts that keep creeping in, basically even all summer, is the negative thoughts and the worry that will come when something like loss happens. And even if you don't relate to losing somebody and having these thoughts, I think my advice can still help when it comes to negative thoughts and worrying and just like feeling like shit about yourself, getting into that mental struggle battle that how that feels and where that can lead you in your life, the stuck cycle. And not only have I experienced that, but I've watched my mother experience that. I've watched many people around me experience that. So I feel like I have a pretty big awareness of, some of the things that have really helped me and why I think we can also get into these stumps. It's not like I'm going to address why we are depressed, because who am I? I know why I get into deep, dark holes sometimes. So obviously I'm just going to speak on experience. But what I was talking to my therapist about was how I really experience the feeling of loss with everything in my life. And it's very almost natural because I lost somebody so close to me. That was the most important relationship that I had in my life. And so when I have good things come in my life, whether it's a new relationship or good things happening with my career or my health, things like that, I had a really bad flare up as well. So I feel like that plays a part as well, or it did play a part. I will then instantly worry about losing it and be scared to lose it. And my mind goes to the worst possible outcome, which would be something taken away from me infinitely, like death. And even if it's not death, then just the worst possible outcome. And I've had to work through those things. Like I said, mainly I need to understand that that's kind of what can happen when you go through something as hard as loss. And it's not even like I haven't experienced these thoughts before in my life. I have, but maybe not to a certain extent. And it's just different. Like the texture, the feel of it is just different because I've lost my mom. But I've been having to work through the loudness of these negative thoughts and these thoughts that do not serve me, because they have been very heavy. And the first thing that I was exploring with my therapist was just recognizing that sometimes you're going to go through a phase of life where it's kind of inevitable that you would have negative thoughts or you would be depressed or things like that. It's like not to like accept, and we love it. We love to be depressed and we love to have negative thoughts, but it is to see, okay, well, what was the thing that happened before you felt depressed? There was probably something that happened. There was probably a trauma. There was probably a trigger. There was probably something. And it's just good to know that. At least for me, I think about like the loss of my mom. It's almost like I give myself a little bit more grace and I don't stress out too much. I don't worry so much when I have these thoughts because I know it's coming from that place. And what's really happening is it's my inner parts trying to keep me safe, right? I want to brace myself. I want to protect myself. I want to make sure that never happens again. And so I'm just understanding that there is a part of me that is coming online during this time, and it is very, very loud. And it's important that I listen, but that I don't allow it to take agency over me, which is the second like step or thought process that you can think about if you're going through this. And again, it doesn't have to be you grieving a loss of something, but just seeing how these negative thoughts can come up, these spirals, the depression, the, feeling not good enough, the wanting to self-sabotage and things like that. As much as this is all true because it's happening now, these thoughts are technically true because you are hearing them, you're thinking them, you're feeling them, you're worried, you're stressed, all of these things. You don't have to allow that to take agency over how you're going to move forward in your life. And I'm at a point right now in my life where I am witnessing that I'm having these thoughts, these feelings, whatever. It's really not about trying to suppress and to erase these feelings or thoughts or these worries, because you're just going to go against yourself. You're going to be battling yourself every single day. It's the same thing as soon as you tell yourself not to have a piece of cake, all you do is think about that cake, and you tell yourself it's so bad and so wrong and you shouldn't do it. You're just thinking about it more and more and more. It just becomes bigger than it needs to be. And it's not that you not fighting against it goes away, but it kind of neutralizes it and it doesn't make everything so big in your head. And I think that's very important. And it allows you to kind of step outside of yourself, kind of like stepping into the highest version of yourself and reminding yourself that, you know what, I do have a choice. These thoughts can rule me, but look at what happens when I allow these thoughts to rule me, or I allow this depression to take over me. And I know people who believe in God, and especially if they're Christian and things like that, they will kind of look at this kind of like a dark entity, like the devil, or this energy of like a sin in a way. And it's almost like the devil is like constantly like knocking on your door and being like, hey, like I'm trying to torment you. I'm trying to whatever. And you want to see that and be like, I'm not answering the door. I don't need to allow you to come in and disrupt my peace. And what helps me is also understanding, like I said before, why I might be having these negative thoughts or these clouds come over me in the first place. There's typically always a reason why you are feeling the way that you're feeling. And so if you can go on that journey and explore why you're feeling very low, what is not fulfilling you in your life? Are there traumas that you have not worked on? These are important things that will keep coming up if you do not address them. Now, like I said, stepping into this higher version of me that's witnessing these thoughts is not really battling them. Just understand that this is a part of life, kind of like detaching from them and knowing that eventually they will go away, but also understanding that the highest version of me is going to need to do certain things in her life to allow these thoughts to no longer creep in and to no longer take agency over me. Because if I don't do certain things, certain habits that I'm going to talk about, then I'm going to be more susceptible to these negative thoughts infiltrating my mind. And when they infiltrate my mind, I'm not going to take care of myself. I'm going to choose the wrong habits. I'm going to choose the thing that is very, very self-serving in the moment, short-term gratification, and I'm going to be weak. So I need to step into that version of me and say, you know what, I'm going to build a life and I'm going to do certain things that allow me to not fall so deeply in depression. And so I want to talk about those things. And I guess a quick disclaimer, not even really disclaimer, but there is so many things that I have learned throughout the years that allow me to not be depressed and to feel a little bit better about life, whether it was going through the grieving process or even beforehand. My life was quite stressful even beforehand. I dealt with a parent who was an addict. I lost my father at 16. He also went through his own addictions and things like that. I also was raised by him. He was very, very strict. I had a loving mother, which made things very complicated. There was strenuous relationships that I saw in my life. There was just a bunch of things that I went through, lots of different traumas. So I've had to find ways to keep me at bay, keep myself at bay. And this is why I'm going to be coming out with a journal series, because there's many things that I have learned in a journal practice that have allowed me to get through some of the darkest and hardest times. So I'm really only going to be talking about the 4 things that are quite prevalent to me right now, and hopefully you can help. And the first thing, and I thought about this last night, and I don't know what I'm going to title this episode. I might not title it this, but this is exactly what made me think about this episode. And that was releasing myself from the suffering that I create in my own mind. And this is what I mean. It's not your fault that you might have been triggered or you have these negative thoughts, or, there's like a root cause of where this is all coming from, right? Like, it's not about putting blame on ourselves, but again, stepping into that agency role, right? And taking ownership over our lives and how we want it to go. We have to realize that we are the ones who torment ourselves and create a lot of suffering than need be. And there's a difference between pain and suffering. The pain happens when the trauma happens, which is technically not your fault, right? It's the family line, it's the generational trauma, it's the actual impact of trauma, it's whatever. It's a loss. It's not my fault. I couldn't help. I couldn't do anything when it came to losing my mom. It happened. It's not my fault, right? And when it comes to pain, there is going to be a natural grieving process, a natural feeling into or releasing those emotions and mourning and feeling sad. And I am so here for allowing yourself that space, which is why it's important to kind of look at why you're hurting in the first place instead of just, all right, let me just muster it up and let me just never be depressed again. Like, I think that there's beauty and there's wisdom, and it's necessary for you before you even move on to something. And I think we all know this when it comes to grieving. Like, we need to grieve the loss of things, but even in smaller circumstances, we need to kind of allow ourselves rooms to feel. Like, even when it comes to a breakup, like, you're allowed to be sad, you're allowed to cry. It's really shitty. Like, you can let yourself feel those things, but then it gets to a point where it almost like the pain gets dragged out and we start to suffer. And I feel like, and I know this because I've gone through many seasons of my life where the suffering is more so the rumination. It's the staying in the cycle. It's the staying in the pain and not getting out and pushing ourselves and finding ways to get out and uplifting ourselves. Now, I see this playing out a lot when I am in my perfectionist mode and I demonize things. So whether it's like making sure that I am on a certain routine, or I feel like I have to do things perfectly and righteous and just no mistakes. And if I have a bad day, then all my progress is lost and I messed up, and even feeling like I have like an off day, like it's just bad. Like, anything that I demonize and I say it shouldn't be happening or it's wrong that it's happening, even when it comes to like smoking weed or going out with a friend and going to dinner and it's not the food that I usually eat, anything like that. As soon as I demonize those things, like saying, it's wrong, I shouldn't be doing that, what I'm actually doing is I'm tormenting myself. I am demonizing myself, and that is suffering. It's internal suffering. I am inflicting this pain onto myself because I am constantly ruminating and thinking about the thing that I did wrong. I'm not good enough. I didn't do it good enough. Whatever it is. And so what I've learned on my journey is when I'm not having a good day, when I feel like I'm messing up or I am going to mess up or I'm falling short or whatever it is, even if I have an urge to do something, I have an urge to have a donut, or I ended up smoking a joint when I said I wasn't going to smoke a joint during the week. I really do my best to try not to demonize the action that I have done. And first, for sure, understand maybe why I'm getting pushed into that, like why I have that urge or whatever, but not trying to live my life as this perfect human being that it has no flaws and that never makes mistakes. Because as soon as I do that, I am actually creating more suffering in my mind versus, you know what? I'm having the donut. I'm accepting it. I'm a flawed human being and I'm going to move on. You can't move on when you're constantly demonizing yourself and being like, you're wrong for doing it. You shouldn't have done it. You keep going over and over and over and over and over again. And then what happens when you do that? You do more of it. You look at yourself, I'm a loser, I ruined my progress, you know what, screw it, let's just go binge, let's just smoke for 5 days straight now, let's just binge drink, let's just screw it, I'm not where I need to be, and then you go into these spirals, you feel low about yourself, you don't take care of yourself, you just keep going. And so I have really learned to not even get myself into that depressive hole, into the cycles, into self-sabotage, is really understanding that I am creating so much of this internal frustration and stress and overwhelm simply by overthinking and being a perfectionist, and I don't need to be. Now, during my hardest times, but even my easiest times in my life, what has helped me stay afloat and not super depressed is understanding the power of routine and getting on one. And I want to make another disclaimer because I have had to work out of this, which is understanding that you will most likely have that perfectionist part that tries to cling on to a routine so heavily, so perfectly. And then when it doesn't, again, you go back into that cycle, that spiral, right? So that's why I even talked about releasing the rumination and the suffering that you create in your own mind and letting that go and understanding that you're a flawed human being, because it is important when it comes to routine. But routine and structure, any sort, consistency is so important for your mental health. And I've seen the effects that it's had on me when I don't have any sort of routine. I've seen the effects that it had on my mom when she didn't have a routine, and even the positive effects that it had on her when I watched her try her best to, show up and try and get consistent with waking up at a certain time, or, like going out and getting outside and doing whatever little routine. It doesn't even need to be a lot. I feel like on social media, you see these routines, the 6 a.m.s and this, that, and listen, I'm a 6 a.m. girl, but it doesn't need to be like that. And sorry if you're watching on YouTube, we got Theo's legs up here because he is napping on me. But a routine is very important for your mental health, something that you can expect that will make you feel a little bit better. And how I like to think about this is if you don't have a routine, don't have a structure, you're waking up consistently at a certain time every day, you have a little bit of a morning routine, maybe it's like you're journaling, maybe you're going on a walk, maybe you're listening to a podcast, you're getting your mind right, maybe you're moving your body, maybe you're seeing a friend, talking to a friend, seeing your boyfriend, whatever it is, like literally eating, it doesn't matter. Like everyone's routine can be however you want. You see your family, you're with your kids, something. I feel like it's like you leave your home open for just anyone to come in. And if you were to do that, then your house would be a mess. People would not value your belongings because you don't know who's coming in and what they're doing. And I look at that the same way as those negative thoughts that will creep in if you don't have any sort of structure, routine. You're looking towards the future. You are working towards something. You can see that at this time I'm doing this type of thing. I really start to hear those negative thoughts and the worry when I am not on any sort of routine and I'm not taking care of myself. And I think with mental health, it's difficult, right? Because sometimes you don't have any energy and you already feel depressed to even get into any routine feels like a lot. But I think that if you can have maybe like a few different routines that you switch in and out of can be very helpful. So on the days that you're just not feeling okay, like I always think about this during my luteal phase, which I just entered it now. I don't feel the best. Like my mood, like I definitely struggle with like low levels of PMDD during that time, which is where you're going to feel those effects of your PMS symptoms and the mood swings and the heavy like mental health issues is during your luteal phase. That's when your hormones are dipping as well. So for me, I just like know that that's a thing, and I try not to put so much pressure on myself of like, you need to like do all your 6 a.m.s and do the workout as soon as you wake up and this, that. I kind of like switch into like a slower mode, and I obviously go with how I feel, right? Like if I feel for some reason like I have all this energy, I'm going to the gym and I'm whatever. But if I have those negative thoughts, I understand that it's normal. I'm kind of going through that process, and I'm going to be very gentle with myself. I'm not going to put too much on my plate. This is where I love to do some emotional release journal practicing, which will be in my journal series, can be very helpful during that time, versus when I'm ovulating, or maybe it's just summer and life is exciting and maybe I didn't go through 8 months of grieving. Like maybe I'm fine, and that means that season of life my routine is like on it, or I'm really passionate, or I'm working towards something that's like lighting me up. So my routines are like very, very structured. Like I think about the time where I was building my YouTube channel, my second channel, which is just my name, Alicia Gogan. This is my podcast channel. And even like growing on TikTok and things like that, like I was in a different flow, and that's okay. So coming back to the fact that routine is important, but also giving yourself grace, but still making sure that you have something that you are doing, which actually brings me into the next thing, which is movement. And we can lie to ourselves all day that we don't feel a difference when we don't move, or it's not that important. But listen, if you were to be real with yourself, you can tell the difference when you have moved your body or not that day. Your mood will tell, your habits will tell, your frustration, your everything, okay? And coming back to the not every single day is going to be the same, but movement is important. I think it's great to have different ways that you can move. Maybe you're doing your walks, maybe you're going to the gym, maybe you do some at-home workouts, whatever the case is. But I have just found over all of my 20s, which my 20s were up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down when it comes to the mental health struggles that I dealt with, movement always helped me not fall into depression. And I think in my early 20s, even before that, like when I got out of high school, I was really looking at movement from a place of I want to change my body. I want to look hot. I don't like the way that I look. I want to be skinny. I want to be fit. I want to be all these things. And I didn't like look at the benefits or understand the benefits of like what that did for my mental health. But you need to move your stuck energy, okay? When it comes to your mental health, you can try and think yourself all day out of your depression or your negative thoughts, or go to therapy or whatever it is. Like honestly, even listening to podcasts, but sometimes you need to come to the body somatically. Trauma lives in the body. Your nervous system is typically in fight or flight, and that can affect what you are thinking as well. So sometimes it's just about moving. You have to move. It's not about staying still. It's not about ruminating and thinking and stressing, which is what we typically do also when we're very depressed. Even if you're not thinking too much, maybe you're numbing yourself. But again, what's good is to move your energy. Get outside. Go get some sun. Go breathe some fresh air. Even if you don't really enjoy it, it's just something that needs to be done, and over time you will feel the difference. I feel the difference, and I feel so good every time I push myself. I go to the gym, I get home, I have that shower, I eat a good meal, and I just feel better. And it's almost like, again, I'm closing some of those doors so that those negative thoughts and that spiral don't continue to happen and come into my atmosphere. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is something that I've always done in my life that has been such a big driver for me, and that is letting myself dream. And I guess I could quickly just take it back to the days where I was obsessed with Tumblr. And I've written this a bit in my book, The Ultimate Glow Up Guide, right here, how on one hand, Tumblr was definitely a little toxic, okay, especially when it comes to body image. When I was younger, high school, if you know, you know. The same thing can go for anyone who goes on Pinterest and you're looking at the wrong images, like too many perfect bodies, too many perfect curated lifestyles and things like that. Same thing with social media. Like it can definitely be toxic, but I do think that Pinterest is a little bit different, at least depending on how you curate it. But I also will always have room in my heart for Tumblr, and now moving on to I use Pinterest because that really allowed me to dream bigger than what was around me. And what was around me was lack, it was financial stress, it was scarcity, it was confusion, it was trauma, it was sickness, it was all of these things. And I think what really can help you is having some sort of vision, some sort of faith, some sort of belief that the future will be brighter than it is now. And I think about my mom and the struggles that she went through and how the future, I know she was trying to be positive with, but it was not looking that bright. And it wasn't looking that bright because I genuinely believe there wasn't room for her to dream. And for many reasons, that was kind of put away. But witnessing what she went through, even what my father went through, and what I've gone through in my life, it is very important for you to have some sort of North Star to allow yourself to dream and dream consistently. And when you are stuck and you don't really have an idea of what you want to dream up for yourself, or even think it's possible because you might be so infiltrated by negative thoughts. I remember during the times where I was deeply grieving, I didn't really even think too much. I wasn't really dreaming too much, but then that was also an outlet that really helped me. And it wasn't anything extravagant. It was just thinking about, maybe next month I will be able to start this one habit, or I'll be a little bit better than I am right now. I even think about when I was going through my flare up, I was just holding on to a little hope, a little star, a little something. And even in the best times in my life, I'm always dreaming. I am going on Pinterest. I'm creating mood boards. You guys know I love a good mood board. I made one for the fall time on my second channel. So if you're interested, I can link that video down below. I just love to think about my future in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. And sometimes that can be overwhelming, and that's fine. But I just think no matter what, to always have that North Star. And this is what I will say. And I told my boyfriend this the other day because I genuinely did not know this until I went into a plane. And the first time I ever went on a plane was, I think, when I was 18, but I didn't experience this because it was nighttime, so I didn't see anything. And then fast forward maybe to when I was, I don't even know, mid-20s or something, I think, when I went to Nashville. When you go on a plane, you go up into the air, you go through the clouds, and we're going to assume today is a gloomy, gloomy day. You go through the clouds. Guess what is above the clouds? It's the sun. And you need to remind yourself on the gloomiest of gloomy days that even though it's gloomy, and we don't need to pretend that it's not, behind those clouds, above those clouds, there is light, and you have to hold on to that. And you don't need to know when you're going to see that light. You don't even need to know how. You just need to weather this storm. And how you do that is by doing the best that you can, trying your best to get up, make your bed, eat a breakfast, go outside for a walk, listen to a podcast that uplifts you. Let yourself dream. Stop being so hard on yourself. Stop tormenting yourself. Don't demonize every wrong thing you think you've done or all the things that you think that you're not doing right. And that's where you can start if it's hard for you to even dream. And bringing it back to the mood boards and, thinking about the future and things like that, it just always allows me to work on something. I wake up with a purpose. Today, I am showing up for myself. I'm eating well. I'm moving my body. I'm doing these things because of X. Because I'm showing up for my family. I'm showing up for my boyfriend. I'm showing up for my friends. I'm showing up for my community. I'm showing up for my future version of myself that needs me to show up now so that we can have a better life in 5 years. Whatever that is, choose that North Star and try your best to work towards it. Now, something I actually learned in the world of neuroscience is your brain actually releases dopamine and all the happy chemicals on the pursuit of something. And sometimes we think it is only released once we achieve the thing. And that might also be true, right? Like there's something like good about, like you crossing off a to-do list or you accomplishing something. It is. But of course we know it's fleeting and then we're on to the next thing. But the thing is when we have a plan, we have something, one little thing, I'm going to school next year, I'm saving up X amount of money, next year I want to go to Europe, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't have to be something crazy. You're releasing those chemicals that are allowing you to feel a little bit better on a day-to-day. So it's very, very important that you have some sort of North Star. Now, I definitely have an idea of creating something for you guys in the new year when it comes to aligning to our future lives and creating our dream lives in that way. So that is obviously only in a few months, and I'm going to be doing my journal series first, but I'm really excited for that because I feel like over the years I've learned how to really create the life that I've wanted. I'm living out my dream life. I'm continuously building that, and there's things that I need to do in terms of alignment and belief work and so many things, but we can do it. But coming back to the depressed state and the suffering that we go through, try to have something, try to wake up with some sort of purpose, and it doesn't need to be anything crazy. So I think I'm going to leave it at there. Those are some of the things that have really helped me be sustained throughout hard times in my life. And those habits, the routines, they keep the door shut from those negative thoughts when they come up, because they are bound to come up, especially during hard times. I understand it's a part of the process a lot, but I also remind myself that I don't need to allow these thoughts to have agency over me. And I think another thing that can be very beneficial is to connect with something that is bigger than you, whether that's you believe in the universe, spirituality, God, something like that can be very, very helpful. But really anchoring yourself into something and doing your best to fight for yourself, okay? Fight for yourself. You can do it. I know you can do it. Hopefully this video helped, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.